Welcome to meeting number 4 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills and Social Development and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House of Commons order of September 23rd, 2020. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So that you are aware, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. To ensure an orderly meeting, I'd like to outline a few rules to follow. First, members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either Floor, English, or French. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you're on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. A reminder that all comments by members should be addressed through the chair, and when you're not speaking, your mic should be on mute. I would now like to welcome our witnesses, Romy Bowers, Senior Vice President, Client Solutions, and Lindsay Neely, Director, Indigenous Housing and North Housing Solutions from the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, Chantal Marin-Comont, Director General, Reconciliation Secretariat, Department of Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, Janet Goulding, Associate Assistant Deputy Minister, Income Security and Social Development Branch, and Chris Johnson, Director General, Homelessness Policy Directorate from the Department of Employment and Social Development, and Chad Westmacott, Director General, Community Infrastructure Bank from the Department of Indigenous Services. I understand CMHC is going to go first. Is it you, Ms. Bowers?
Yes, it is.
You have the floor for 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm joining you today from Toronto, the traditional territory of the Wendat, the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Métis, and the Mississauga of the Credit First Nation. It's a great pleasure to appear here before this committee on behalf of the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation. We are Canada's national housing agency. We are guided by a very bold aspiration. By 2030, everyone in Canada has a home that they can afford and that meets their needs. To achieve this goal, we know that we must do more to address the diverse and pressing housing needs of Indigenous peoples. For Indigenous households living in urban, rural, and northern areas, the rate of core housing need is 18% as compared to the national average of 12.7%. The housing needs are most dire across the territories where approximately 1/3 of the Indigenous population lives in unacceptable housing. There is still much to do, but we believe that there are many reasons to be optimistic. Even in the midst of a global pandemic, CMHC is actively working with new and existing partners to help address the exceptional housing challenges created by the COVID-19 crisis. At CMHC, we have quickly rolled out a number of new initiatives that will support Indigenous and Northern housing needs. For example, we're delivering a new shelter initiative that will fund the construction of 12 new shelters for Indigenous women and children across the country for the next 5 years. We're also supporting close to 400 Indigenous youth secure employment in the housing sector at a time when jobs can be very difficult to find. And last month, we launched a new Rapid Housing Initiative, a $1 billion program to help address urgent housing needs by expediting the creation of permanent affordable housing. In addition to these recent initiatives, we continue to offer the funding and financing options to support Indigenous and Northern housing needs through the National Housing Strategy. Launched in 2017, the National Housing Strategy was developed in consultation with Canadians and various partners, including provinces and territories, Indigenous organizations, and community housing providers. There is more than $55 billion being delivered through various programs and initiatives, and we have prioritized Indigenous and Northern housing needs across all of them. For example, through the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, we have invested over $121 million over the last 2 years to support 577 units serving Indigenous and Northern housing needs. There is also $125 million set aside within this fund to target specific needs, including repairs to existing urban Indigenous housing stock and for projects in the North. We are also supporting Indigenous-led innovation, research, and demonstration projects to help communities explore culturally appropriate, industry-leading housing models or technologies. I'd like to point out that provinces and territories play a key role in supporting Indigenous and Northern housing. Through new bilateral agreements with CMHC, provinces and territories are delivering various programs, including the new Canada Housing Benefit that will help low-income households access affordable housing. In addition, there is $200 million in targeted funding being provided through the Canada Community Housing Initiative to protect and preserve affordability among existing units serving Indigenous households. Although not Indigenous specific, targeted funding for the territories will benefit Indigenous people living in the North. There's $447 million being provided through bilateral agreements with 3 territories, including $300 million to address the higher housing costs and needs of the North. Reducing chronic homelessness is also a key priority of the National Housing Strategy. And my colleagues at ESDC will be speaking later about funding and programs being delivered to address homelessness. There are various other programs under the National Housing Strategy umbrella, and we are actively working to ensure Indigenous housing providers and organizations can access these funds and make the most of these programs to address their varying needs. We have recently created an Indigenous and Northern Housing Solutions team at CMHC to provide dedicated support for our clients. However, we recognize that to advance reconciliation, we need housing strategies that are for Indigenous people and led by Indigenous people. We are very proud to be an active partner in working with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis organizations alongside Indigenous Service Canada, CERNA, on distinctions-based housing strategies. My colleagues from these departments can provide more details on these initiatives. We'll also be working with Indigenous partners, housing providers, and others to identify critical housing needs and gaps in urban, rural, and northern areas. This work will complement our larger plan to address critical infrastructure needs in Indigenous communities. For many years, we have offered funding through various legacy housing programs to build new and repair or renovate existing housing in First Nations communities. We provide the tools and training to First Nations to assist with housing management, maintenance, and construction. In 2019-2020 alone, these programs helped build or renovate some 1,200 homes and preserve rent subsidies to 22,600 households. These programs are complemented by initiatives delivered by Indigenous Services Canada, and together we invest some $326 million annually on First Nations housing on reserve. Finally, I'd like to note that real change starts within CMHC, and at CMHC we want to do our part. And I just want to highlight a few actions that we're taking in support of our reconciliation initiatives. We've nominated an executive level special advisor on Indigenous housing and reconciliation and are in the process of establishing an Indigenous Advisory Council. This work will touch on all facets of our country and company, including our business practices and relationships with Indigenous peoples and organizations. Our reconciliation work is also being supported by Indigenous Employee Resource Group, and we're offering training to all employees on reconciliation. We'll also support the transition of our dedicated housing programs for Indigenous housing towards Indigenous self-determination, care, and control. We are very pleased that this committee will be exploring the gaps and barriers in urban, rural, and northern Indigenous housing as part of its study. We are committed to doing our part to help build a better future for Indigenous peoples across the country. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I will be very pleased to answer any questions of the committee that they may have regarding my opening remarks. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Suite, nous avons
Merci, Madame Bauer.
We now have
la parole pour 5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
of the Algonquin Nation, where I'm currently situated, to also recognize the traditional territories from where you are participating. I'm pleased to represent Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, which is responsible for overseeing some of the Government of Canada's initiatives related to Inuit and Métis Nation housing. Safe, healthy, and affordable housing provides the foundations for individuals and families to achieve better health and socioeconomic outcomes. But for Indigenous peoples, it's also a way to live their culture, stay connected to their communities, and enable them to participate in society and the economy. And these are the reasons that in 2017, through the Inuit Crown Partnership Committee and through the Canada Métis Nation Accord, federal and Indigenous leadership committed to working together to take important steps to address the significant housing needs. So today I'm happy to speak in particular about our work with Inuit and the Métis Nation. I would like to start my remarks by giving you a few of the current statistics. According to the 2017 report from the Standing Senate Committee on Aboriginal Peoples, over 50% of Inuit in Inuit Nunangat, the traditional homeland of Inuit, live in crowded homes. And we have heard stories of 15 people sharing a 3-bedroom home, entranceways and boiler rooms being turned into sleeping areas, and children taking turns sleeping because there's just not enough room. Over 30% of Inuit live in homes needing major repairs. Overcrowding contributes to the rate of tuberculosis in Inuit communities, and that rate is about 300 times higher than non-Indigenous Canadians. And Métis people experience core housing need at a rate of 25% higher than non-Indigenous Canadians. Therefore, in budget for 2016 and 2018, Canada invested a combined $980 million in distinction-based funding to address Inuit and Métis Nation housing needs. But this includes $80 million in 2016 over 2 years and $400 million in 2018 over 10 years to support the Inuit-led housing strategy with direct investments in Nunavik, Nunatsiavut, and the Inuvialuit regions. It also includes a $500 million in 2018 over 10 years to support Métis Nation housing strategy. And this was the first time that investments in Indigenous housing by design took a distinctions-based, Indigenous-led approach and delivery. The co-developed Inuit Nunangat housing strategy, which was released in April 2019, and the Métis Nation Housing Sub-Accord signed in 2018 were designed by Indigenous partners and will be delivered by Indigenous partners. And the strategies recognize the importance of long-term planning, direct investments to Indigenous partners, the need for innovation and experimentation, and takes into consideration the housing development challenges. A few results to date. Since 2016, Inuit housing authorities have overseen the construction of approximately 480 housing units, with an estimated 550 more to be completed by the end of budget 2018. Since 2018, Métis Nation housing authorities have overseen the construction of purchase of nearly 200 units while renovating nearly 1,000 and subsidizing rents for nearly 1,200 Métis citizens. These approaches directly lead to employment and business opportunities because of Indigenous leadership's strong commitments to ensure that maximum benefits remain in their communities. These strategies are being delivered in flexible and innovative ways reflecting Indigenous lifestyles, traditions, and culture. In response to COVID-19 pandemic, Indigenous partners have directed some of the housing investments to deliver short-term emergency rental subsidies and temporary shelters for people living in unsuitable condition. So as you can see, some progress has been made in addressing Métis and Inuit housing needs, but there remain significant challenges. And some of these challenges relate solely on geography. Particularly significant for Inuit, housing construction in remote locations is characterized by a short construction season and the high cost of construction materials and labor. Enhanced coordination between programs and services offered from federal, provincial, territorial, and municipal governments is also required. There is a complex patchwork of program services and funding opportunities available from different levels of governments. Inuit and Métis Nation partners have also identified the need to build capacity in their regions to take on greater roles and responsibilities in housing development and management and to promote innovation and experimentation in housing. We also know that funding is not consistent or sufficient to address the degree of housing gap, and long-term planning is required. So what are the next steps? The 2020 speech from the throne recognized the need for continued attention to housing in Indigenous communities and committed to making ongoing progress to increase safe and affordable housing for Indigenous peoples. So we've taken important steps with Inuit and Métis Nation partners, and these are guided by Canada's commitment to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, but also to self-determination. Results of the current strategy so far indicate that we're on the right path, that distinction-based, self-determined approaches lead to more effective results, but a lot more needs to be done. Together, we can ensure that the most immediate housing needs are addressed while establishing a strong and equal foundation for Inuit and Métis Nation housing. Thank you, and miigwech.
Thank you, Ms. Marin-Comeau. Next, we have the Department of Employment and Social Development. Ms. Goulding, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin people, from which I'm joining you this evening and have the privilege to work and live here. Mr. Chair, committee members, thank you for the invitation to speak with you today about the federal government's approach to preventing and addressing urban, rural, and northern Indigenous homelessness. This evening, I will provide a description of the Reaching Home program, a brief history of federal Indigenous homelessness programming, and an overview of the current federal efforts to address Indigenous homelessness, including in urban, rural, and northern communities. Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy, is a community-based program aimed at preventing and reducing homelessness across Canada. Reaching Home replaced the homelessness partnering strategy in April 2019 and represents the $2.2 billion investment over 10 years to tackle homelessness. Under Reaching Home, direct financial support is provided to community entities. These are organizations responsible for managing funding in their community or region according to homelessness needs and priorities. Reaching Home supports the goals of the National Housing Strategy, and in particular its objectives to assist the most vulnerable Canadians in maintaining safe, stable, and affordable housing, and to reduce chronic homelessness in half by 2028, a goal that will be evolving along the lines expressed in the last speech from the throne. To understand Reaching Home, it's useful to look to past federal homelessness programming. The overrepresentation of Indigenous people in the homeless population has been known for some time, and significant investments have been made under federal homelessness programming to address this issue. In 1999, the government launched the National Homeless Initiative, and under this initiative, it introduced an Aboriginal homelessness stream. Dedicated funding was provided for the first time to Indigenous organizations to provide programs and services that met the distinct needs of Indigenous people experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. While the initial Aboriginal homelessness stream only provided $8.1 million annually to 8 cities across Canada, the funding was later increased to expand to other communities, and the annual total investment eventually reached $14.3 million. Budget 2016 then doubled the funding available under this stream to bring it to $28.7 million annually. Since the launch of Reaching Home, financial support to reduce Indigenous homelessness has expanded to 30 urban communities and 7 regional areas, including a recent expansion to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland and Labrador. Reaching Home recognizes that Indigenous people are overrepresented in homelessness, and that is why $413 million has been dedicated to address Indigenous homelessness over 9 years. Of this amount, the program is investing $261 million over 9 years, approximately $29 million a year, through the existing Indigenous homelessness stream to maintain the community-based approach and to help organizations provide culturally appropriate supports and services for all Indigenous people in those communities. In addition, as part of the Reaching Home program, a new funding envelope of $152 million over 9 years was created for the development and implementation of distinction-based approaches to homelessness. ESDC has been engaging with national Indigenous organizations in alignment with the permanent bilateral mechanisms to ensure that funding meaningfully responds to the needs of First Nation, Métis, and Inuit. Our engagement efforts are focused on identifying homelessness-related priorities and concluding funding agreements to pursue distinctions-based approaches. For the first time, funding for modern treaty holders that have provisions in their treaties related to health and social services is also being explored. ESDC has identified 20 modern treaty holders with these provisions, and engagement to establish homelessness funding agreements is at various stages. I will also note that Reaching Home established a new territorial homelessness stream with funding of $23 million over 5 years. While the territorial homelessness stream is not Indigenous specific, it does have a significant focus on Indigenous homelessness given the high proportion of Indigenous peoples in these territories. Further, Reaching Home has 2 other funding streams, and the designated community stream and the rural and remote homelessness stream, and these also can help provide supports and services to Indigenous peoples. While it is important to recognize that the investments have been increased over time and program improvements have been made, our work is clearly not done. In 2018, 30% of the homeless population in Canada identified as Indigenous, while Indigenous peoples account for roughly 5% of the total population. The prevalence of Indigenous homelessness and the overrepresentation of Indigenous people within the homeless population are ongoing concerns. And they are linked to the experience of colonialism, to intergenerational trauma, as well as to a number of other structural, systemic, individual, or relational factors. That is why we welcome this committee's interest in the issue of Indigenous homelessness, particularly in the context of the recent speech from the Throne commitment to ending chronic homelessness, because it will be imperative to prevent and address Indigenous homelessness if we are to attain this ambitious goal. I look forward to recommendations on how urban, rural, and Northern Indigenous housing and homelessness can be addressed, and I will do my best to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goulding. Next, we're going to hear from the Department of Indigenous Services, Mr. Westmacott, please.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to present the work that Indigenous Services Canada is undertaking in collaboration with Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs Canada, Employment and Social Development Canada, and Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation, and First Nation partners to address the housing gap for Indigenous people on and off the reserve. Before I proceed, I would like to recognize that I am presenting from the unceded traditional territory of the Algonquin Nation. By way of an introduction, I'm Chad Westmacott, Director General of the Community Infrastructure Branch within Indigenous Services Canada. My branch leads the policy development, interpretation, and implementation for infrastructure that helps to ensure First Nation communities have access to high-quality education facilities, clean drinking water, and better housing. Housing is a fundamental need for all Canadians, including Indigenous peoples, and all should have access to safe, adequate, and affordable housing. We know that First Nations, Inuit, and Métis are more likely to experience poor housing conditions, overcrowding, and homelessness in the general population. We also know that overcrowding can be a key indicator of hidden homelessness, where people have access to accommodations but have no immediate prospect of permanent or stable housing. Not having access to adequate housing has impacts on community and family well-being. For example, not having an adequate place to sleep or study can impact education, health, and the ability to secure and maintain work. Housing is a core element of the social determinants of health, and its impacts are great both on individuals and families. COVID-19 has further illustrated the housing gap and the impacts housing has on human health. It has also emphasized the importance of working with Indigenous communities to address their housing requirements. In relation to housing on reserve, ISC supports First Nations in the development of sustainable and community-driven housing solutions. This includes providing approximately $140 million in ongoing annual funding and has, for the past 5 years, included an additional $200 million annually in time-limited funding through budgets 2016 and 2018, for a total of $1 billion from those budgets. These funds are used to address urgent housing needs and supports new construction and repairs for First Nations housing units on reserve. As of June 2020, ISC and the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation have jointly supported the construction, renovation, or retrofit of 20,096 homes and servicing of 1,127 lots, benefiting 595 First Nation communities. ISC has also been supporting 992 housing-related capacity development and innovation projects in First Nation communities. These projects include supporting the creation and implementation of housing authorities and housing management training. In April 2019, the department also launched the $36 million Indigenous Homes Innovation Initiative, The initiative directly supports innovative, Indigenous-led, and community-driven ideas that could lead to better housing and social conditions in rural, urban, and remote First Nations, Inuit, and Métis communities. Our support for First Nations through these investments are improving living conditions. For example, the Anishinaabe Nation of Lac-Simon built 8 semi-detached mini houses suitable for both seniors and single-parent families to better respond to the needs of vulnerable people living alone. Pelican Lake First Nation introduced new housing policies around homeownership, a housing maintenance program for tenants, and training on new upgraded software used in on-reserve housing management for the community's housing staff. This has enhanced its ability to ensure community members have comfortable, quality housing for generations to come. These investments are only the first step in moving beyond responding to critical needs. To this end, ISK is working with the Assembly of First Nations and the Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation to co-develop a 10-year First Nations housing and related infrastructure strategy. The overall goal of the strategy is to improve housing conditions for First Nations and ensure all First Nations have access to safe, adequate, and healthy housing, thus creating sustainable and healthy communities. This work supports First Nations in identifying their priorities to prepare for the transfer of housing programs and services, and to identify how they want to be involved in addressing urban, rural, and northern housing issues. Next steps for the strategy include the co-development of an implementation plan to describe short, medium, and long-term outcomes. Simultaneously, First Nations-owned data and information is being gathered by First Nations to inform further development and implementation of the strategy. Finally, in support of closing the critical infrastructure gap by 2030, which includes housing, ISK is working with Indigenous partners to co-develop plans that will support community-led investments in infrastructure that will help address disparities. This is balanced by a longer-term vision to stabilize infrastructure funding to ensure that resources are available to enable the successful transfer of housing services to First Nations. In closing, I would like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to the ongoing work that my department is doing to close the housing gap in collaboration with federal partners and Indigenous people and organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Westmacott. Now we're going to proceed with the rounds of questions, beginning with the Conservatives. Mr. Schmale, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the testimony to our witnesses. Some great information there. I'd like to start with my question regarding the Rapid Housing Initiative. Looking at the need and what we heard in the testimony just a few moments ago, clearly there is a need in the north. There's a whole bunch of things, stock, there's the terrible conditions, that type of thing, overcrowding. Was there funding dedicated to the north and the Rapid Housing Initiative?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Chair. I'll take that question on behalf of CMHC. There is no dedicated funding or carve-out for the north. However, having said that, we do have a prioritization process, and the whole rationale for rapid housing is to bring money to the people who need it most. So one of the witnesses that we have here is Lindsay Neely. She has a group of people who are actively looking at applications that are coming from the north and ensuring that there is support given to organizations from the north who are trying to access that funding, and making sure that the needed priority is given to those applications.
So I might as well stick with my friend from the CMHC. In the recent Northern Housing Report, it's looking like it's no longer able to provide forecasts outside of the 3 major urban centers in the north. According to your website, it's due to a lack of data that's available. Can you tell us why there is less information available?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Smale. I will. We do have a dedicated housing economist team that collects data across the country. There are challenges associated with collecting data in the north. I can get back to you regarding the question regarding the very specific challenges that exist in the north, and we can also include steps that we're taking to address this data gap in the long term.
It's my understanding this data gap is fairly new. Where did the information come from before that you weren't able to get it now, if that is true, if my understanding is correct?
Thank you very much again for that question, and I will provide a written response to that as well.
Okay, perfect. I want to continue on with your testimony there. You mentioned in your remarks that by 2030, everyone in Canada has a home they can afford and that meets their needs. Do you have a costing on that by any chance?
So as I mentioned in my remarks, there's been a historic investment in support of affordable housing by the federal government. The amount that's being invested is $55 billion over 10 years. And when CMHC looks at that, we view that as sort of the foundation on which all our activities are built. We work with our partners in the provinces and territories, but also with nonprofits and the private sector as well. And our aim is to use the $55 billion, which is a significant investment, but also attract other sources of capital to make sure that we address the housing needs of all Canadians.
Now, I look on your website when you talk about your aspirations, and by 2030, making sure everyone has a home is quite aspirational indeed. You know, it's good to shoot for the stars, but also realize the realities. But it also has an asterisk on your website here. It reads, all people physically living in Canada, regardless of citizenship. Can you expand on that and tell me what that means?
So we try to be inclusive in our aspiration, and you're absolutely correct. It is an aspiration, and it is a moonshot, but that we're striving towards. And we try to be inclusive in that we try to address all people who are living in Canada, regardless of their citizenship. So this would include people like new immigrants or refugees who may have not yet gained citizenship.
So anybody physically, if they cross the border illegally, they would then be given a home that meets their needs. Is that correct? That they can afford. Now, if they cross illegally, they technically can't work. So they would get a home for free that meets their needs.
In all honesty, Mr. Shell, that was not our intention in setting our targets.
So if that, but according to you're saying all people living in Canada, that means everyone.
That's correct.
So is there a cost for this?
I think I've addressed the answer to that question in my previous remarks.
I'll take it that you'll send it to us, but to me, this is saying you're giving everybody that crosses the border, legally or illegally, a house that meets their needs they can afford. And if they're illegal, they can't work. Therefore, they don't have income, which means they would get a house, whether they have 2 kids coming alone, 10 kids. Can you please clarify that? And if this is wrong, why is this on your website?
Just a short answer, Ms. Bowers, we're out of time.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. And our 2030 goal is an aspiration, and we will address your specific questions regarding illegal immigrants in our written response. So thank you very much.
A point of order, Chair.
Yes,
point of order.
Go ahead, Ms. Gazan, on a point of order.
Thank you, Chair. And with all due respect to my colleague, the purpose of these meetings is to study urban, Indigenous, and rural housing. Certainly not to make inflammatory kind of assumptions about illegal people entering the country.
There was nothing inflammatory. I was asking what's on their website.
People illegal. I just
Ms.
think.
Gazan, you have the floor.
Yeah, I went on the website.
Mr. Schmale, please mute your mic until Ms. Gazan is finished. You can use the raise hand function if you wish to speak on the point of order. If you wish to engage in debate, you're out of order. Go ahead, Ms. Gazan.
I think if we want to certainly call for meetings on refugee and housing or immigration and housing, that would be appropriate. I think it's pretty uncalled for in this meeting, and certainly the comments, you know, I would hope my respected colleague would do some research on that. Thank you.
Mr. Schmale?
Well, I appreciate the concern from my friend from the NDP, and I have worked with her on the Crown Indigenous Relations portfolio, and I do appreciate her comments. It's my understanding, committee, you can ask whatever you want when the microphone is yours. I only asked the line of questioning that was brought up in actual testimony in her witness statements. I then went on the CMHC website in which she was talking about and referencing, and I found that. I was asking a simple question that I just wanted an answer to. I had a series of questions, and I did not feel I was given the proper answer. And I know my friend from the NDP might not like that, but I was curious, and I did not feel that I was given an answer. So until I'm censored on what I can say, I thought, and I feel now, that I was asking a valid question.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Gazan. Thank you, Mr. Schmale. The questions certainly tested the boundaries of relevance in terms of the study, but there is generally a wide latitude given, as Mr. Schmale has pointed out. Ms. Gazan, I think you've made your point, and we're going to move on now to Ms. Young, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all our guests tonight for being here for this very important study on urban, rural, and Indigenous housing. A very important issue in my riding of London West, where the majority of people facing homelessness in my community are Indigenous people. And I'm speaking from the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Attawandarak, and Chippewa, the Thames. I wanted to ask about the Reaching Home, and so I'll go to Ms. Goulding. I understand that the Reaching Home is being used to help Indigenous people living in urban areas, and they're overrepresented in our emergency shelters. But do you get a sense that that you really have a handle on the problem? Because a lot of people who are Indigenous wouldn't actually go to shelters to seek support.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. And I think what we can say is the data available to us. We use several sources of data, and one is the shelter data that you refer to, but we also use pit count data, which pit count represents point in time counts that happen across our designated communities on usually every other year. And it provides us with a valuable source of information. It counts more than just those individuals experiencing homelessness in shelters, but as well sleeping rough in the street or in other institutional settings where they're being perhaps released from those settings and not having a place to go. So I think it's safe to say that the data that we have provides a strong indication of homelessness across the country and in Indigenous homelessness, but that it's hard to get a full picture and it's likely somewhat unrepresented. I think we can be certain, though, that our Indigenous population is still overrepresented in that population that we can count, and that supports are definitely needed to support this part of our community.
Would you say that with the homelessness issue across this country, that the program will be able to clearly find ways to help these people who are living homeless?
So we recognize with Reaching Home a couple of things. So as I indicated in my opening remarks, the federal government has significantly increased its support to the homeless serving sector across the country. But solving the homelessness problem is a problem that we share with provinces and territories and municipalities. And in many communities, the federal government is not the biggest funder of these services. Much of this falls squarely into provincial and territorial jurisdiction. But we do think that the funds that we provide are important supports that are allowing communities to develop important elements like coordinated access and community plans. We very much encourage through the program coordination between our community entities. So even though the designated community stream is the largest, where we do have Indigenous community entities, we encourage strong collaboration so that all homeless individuals are served in those communities, regardless of their ethnicity or their cultural background.
So there is engagement with Indigenous groups for the shelter home program.
So I'm not sure if I know what you mean when you say the shelter home program, but what I can say is that we have funding in 30 communities across the country and 7 regions that specifically have Indigenous community entities targeting culturally appropriate services for Indigenous individuals, but that in the other communities where we provide funding, there is strong collaboration between all of the partners there to ensure that all homeless individuals are served.
With the federal and provincial, as you talked about, that there are some of them are provincial programs, some of them federal. Is there a problem with jurisdictional disputes that are hindering progress in this area?
I don't think there's a problem with jurisdictional disputes. No, I think the split in responsibilities is quite clear. So provinces and territories are responsible for social services and health services, for example. The federal funding supplements the kind of services required to provide coordination, case management for housing, and particularly in the COVID context, there's been additional support provided to ensure shelters and the homeless serving sector can ensure they can meet the new public health measures around self-isolation and quarantine and those kinds of things. So I wouldn't say that there's a jurisdictional problem there, no.
Okay, how much time do I have, Chair?
For about 35 seconds.
Oh, okay, well, I'll pass it along to my next colleague. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you very much, Ms. Young.
Next, Ms. Chabot, you have 6 minutes, please. Good evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank all of our witnesses. Thank you for your speeches. First of all, we are parliamentarians, we are members of the HUMA committee, and in the next few weeks we will be hearing from witnesses. We will hear about their experiences. They will talk about some problems they have when it comes to access to housing. It is quite a challenge for some people. And sometimes it's a challenge to talk about that. We are looking at the different programs, how they are coordinated. And first of all, I would like to thank our analysts for providing us with very important documents to help us in our study. So I was just wondering, how can we coordinate, how can we work together to make sure that all the programs you have talked about, programs to help for housing or for homelessness, are able to meet the needs of the people? How can we monitor the progress, the problems? I think it would be very useful to have that kind of information. You don't have to answer to that comment, but it's an important comment, I believe. I have a question for Ms. Bowers. I am a Francophone, so my apologies for my Anglophone accent. So I have a question regarding the housing strategy, especially in the north of Quebec. There is the National Housing Strategy that says that for the Inuit Nunangat, $400 million during 10 years to build and repair housing in Nunavik, among other regions. So StatScan gave us some data. It says that 23% of housing needed repair. And it said also that we needed new units. So could you tell us how is this initiative doing in the Nunavik region, and do you have estimates to give us? So this is a 10-year project. So how can we be sure that we are meeting the needs of the people in the Nunavik region? Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, I would like to thank Madame Chabot for that question, and I'd like to defer this question to my colleagues at CERNA, who is the department in charge of this particular funding. And I think they're in the best position to provide a response. Thank you.
Oui, bonjour, Madame Chabot.
Good afternoon, Ms. Chabot. Thank you very much for your question. Chantal Marin-Comeau here. This 10-year investment, well, we are at the third year now, during the third year, and since the beginning, we've been working with Indigenous partners. We've been working together on the plans. We've been working together on funding for regions, and this includes the Nunavik. And we're working also with the province, the Nunavik region, and the federal government. So we were working all together to establish the annual plans. We're working on projections. I can also say that what's being done in that region is done by the Inuits in collaboration with local and municipal authorities. Progress has been made already. And as I said at the beginning, we need to do more. But there is a direct funding that's given to our Inuit partners, and this is encouraging for them. And this partnership is built on self-determination. We've received lots of positive comments. We have identified gaps. Actually, our Inuit partners have identified gaps. And investments are also identified by our Inuit partners. We need to do more. I repeat it, but I hope I was able to answer your question. Yes, you have, but could we receive a report regarding this? What's going on there? Well, every year we provide a report, and this year, at the end of the year, we will be working on another report, so I will be happy to send it your way. Thank you very much. Now, I have a question about the Rapid Housing Initiative. We know about this program. It's a $1 billion program. But are there amounts reserved especially for Indigenous communities, or is it more general? This is just this $1 billion to invest in different projects, but are there some amounts for Indigenous communities? So my question is for Ms. Bowers.
Much, Mr. Chair, for this question. The $1 billion Rapid Housing Initiative consists of two streams. There is half of the funds are being dedicated to select municipalities, but there is the other half, $500 million, has a project stream. So all nonprofits and other organizations throughout Canada are invited to apply. We do have a prioritization process that makes it very important that we serve the most vulnerable in our community and where the needs are the greatest. So clearly, projects that are in the north would fit that prioritization criteria. We have a team at CMHC who works with proponents in the north to make sure that we provide support in the application process and make sure that the prioritization process occurs as it should.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. Merci, Madame Chabot. Madame Marin-Comeau.
Ms. Marin-Comeau, I received an email from Mr. Kent. When you speak in French, you have to click on the button that says French, interpretation. So it was hard to hear you because you didn't change channel. Thank you very much, and my apologies to the members of the committee. No worries, no worries. It happens. It happens in this new world.
Ms. Gazan, please, for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my first question, I want a brief responses just because of my short period of time from Madame Morin-Cormo and also Madame Golding, and just to thank everybody for being here. I know it's a very difficult time and I appreciate your time here today. So my first question is due to with the government recently announcing funding for rapid housing and reaching home primarily targeted, as you indicated, towards Indigenous housing projects and women. We know, in particular to my writing, that 70% of the unsheltered community in Winnipeg is Indigenous. And although I've appreciated working with my colleague Adam Vaughn to get resources in our community, the $12.5 million allocation is grossly inadequate in terms of meeting our current needs. And it's resulting now in people losing their lives with COVID's outbreaks within our shelter system. We're running out of space in our isolation units for the unsheltered community with places that have been opened up during COVID. And this wouldn't have happened in the first place if there hadn't been a history of underfunding and underinvesting, particularly in the area of Indigenous affordable, accessible social housing, which is particularly pronounced on reserve as a result of former finance minister and former prime minister, the Right Honorable Paul Martin's 2% funding cap that has been devastating in terms of the housing situation on reserve. With the rise of COVID cases, across the country, certainly in First Nations and Inuit communities, both urban and rural on reserve, we know the investments are inadequate. Just very simply, are there any plans to increase investments to actually meet the real needs and urgency of housing on reserve and also in urban centers? So if you could quickly respond to that, and then I'll move to my next question. Thank you. Either one can start. So maybe we'll start with you, Madame Morin-Cormo.
Thank you very much. So I think I don't need to toggle anything, so I hope everyone will understand my answer. So I'll respond in the specific area that I'm responsible for, so Inuit and Métis housing. So the question you ask is kind of a complex one, but maybe I'll just start with, what are kind of some plans for future years? So under the current strategies, approximately 550 units are going to be planned in the three Inuit regions. And there's going to be a whole bunch of units that will be obviously see light of day. There's going to be some reparations, as I mentioned, and there's also going to be some new constructions and things like that. On the Métis housing strategy, we've established that the 10-year by year 10, Métis houses 3,000 new homes, renovation and repairs to 2,500 homes, providing 27,000 rent subsidies. So there is quite a bit that will be done under the current investments, but you quite rightly just pointed out that we are working with Métis Nation and with Inuit to determine, because we are in the third year of this 10-year investment, there's still data coming in, and this year will actually be a pivotal year to establish exactly what these investments will cover.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. That's good, just because my time is so brief and I want to be able to hear from Madame Golding quickly before I move on. Madame Golding, are there plans for more investment?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I was just struggling with that unmute button. I think what I would point to in this instance is the distinctions-based funding that I mentioned in my opening remarks. So we do have 150 million allocated towards distinctions-based funding, and this is a process of allocation that we are co-developing with our national Indigenous organizations. So the impact of that funding is not yet being felt in communities, and so I would indicate that that's probably the most important new funding that will become available.
Okay, super. Thank you so much. And again, for the two witnesses, and you mentioned the distinction-based housing. I did some number crunching. So with the Indigenous housing strategy, what you've offered is 600 million over 3 years for First Nations on reserve as part of a 10-year First Nations housing strategy, 400 million over 10 years to support a housing plan led by the Inuit, and 500 million over 10 years to support Métis Nations housing strategy, a strategy that's yet to be released. So Indigenous people in my riding and elsewhere in Canada have not only been dispossessed of our lands, but we continue to be denied the basic human right to housing. So, and this is urgent. We've seen that during the pandemic. And the strategy that is to be released is, as I indicated, inadequate. For example, if you divide the number that was allocated to the 634 reserves, the 600 million divided by 3 years, it amounts to approximately $315,000 per community for a house, which is often sometimes even more because of remoteness issues. For Inuit, you offered 400 million for 53 communities. That's about just over 750,000. And just lastly, for the Métis with this strategy, it amounts to $100 per Métis person. So,
Ms. Gazan, you're out of time.
Sorry. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
okay,
you.
Thank you.
Next, we're going to proceed with the 5-minute rounds, beginning with Mr. Viss for the Conservatives. Mr. Viss for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you to all of the participants today. Just a big shout out to Matsqui First Nation in my riding, which recently acquired the old hospital lands in Abbotsford, where I was born. They're going to be doing some great work there, building commercial and rental housing, and I'm super excited about what that's going to do for the Matsqui Nation. Just a couple of housekeeping questions as we commence this very important study. To CMHC first, I'm just going to give you a suite of questions, and if you don't have the answers today, I'd like it if you could please provide it to all committee members at a later date. Just for clarification purposes, because we had a lot of information thrown at us. At CMHC, how many programs does CMHC operate with the purpose of providing Indigenous housing? Question 2, how many people at CMHC work on Indigenous housing? What is the total budget allocation for Indigenous housing, both in administrative and direct program expenditures? And how much does it cost your organization to produce 1 unit of Indigenous housing, both in respect to the program and administrative costs? And I would ask him, now would go to the Department of Employment and Social Development. Madame Golding, would you have that information available today, or should I assume that you'll report back to the committee with some of those basic points?
Sorry, Mr. Chair, I defer that to my colleague from CMHC.
Oh, so I'm just for clarification, you don't have anyone at Employment and Social Development that works on Indigenous issues?
On Indigenous homelessness or Indigenous housing?
Yeah,
we have
all of the above, both.
Yes. So we have a number at ESDC. We have a number of programs focused on Indigenous issues, skills and training, homelessness. So I can provide you with the numbers on homelessness.
Okay.
But in terms of our departmental resources, I'd have to report back on that.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess I'll pass those questions on to Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs and Indigenous Services.
So first, for Crown Indigenous Relations and Northern Affairs, we can get back to you with that information. But as you know, the full department is dedicated to Indigenous services. So would you like to be more specific in terms of housing for Inuit and Métis, or just maybe a bit more specificity?
Yeah, just for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis, how many people, all of the programs under your department, how many people work on those programs, the budget allocation both for administrative and program implementation or program costs, and then the average cost per unit for producing a unit of housing through the federal government. Just trying to get a broad understanding of what the federal government is doing right now to help all committee members provide positive recommendations moving forward as we
Absolutely.
embark on this study. Thank you. And I didn't expect everyone to have the information, but I wanted to get it on the record. And I guess for Mr. Westmacott, I don't believe you'd have that information today, would you?
Not in terms of the actual specifics of the number of people nor the unit average cost per unit. I would say though the average cost or the cost per unit will vary extensively depending on where it is in the country and the different conditions there. But we can get back to you with better information.
Even if you were able to provide a regional breakdown, say for a unit, average cost per unit in British Columbia versus Ontario and the territories, or a regional breakdown, that would be very helpful for all of us. And it kind of goes along the lines of my NDP colleagues' questions as well. So that if you could provide that information back to all committee members, that would be very helpful. Thank you, sir. On the rapid housing initiative, just some clarification from CMHC, please. You mentioned that there were two streams, the $500 million that was allocated to mostly urban communities, and secondly, a priority, another fund of priority-based funding that, or another $500 million that is going to be prioritized by CMHC officials. Why was there an initial $500 million prioritized for mostly urban communities in Canada when it's very clear that in Northern Canada and in the territories that their priorities is just as great as those of urban areas? And I raise this question because I heard back from the government in Northwest Territories recently, and they just outlined again the acute challenges that they're facing in Yellowknife especially.
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Vies. And with respect to the first stream, when we chose the 15 large municipalities, we based that based on where severe housing need existed in Canada. So we looked at homelessness through stats provided by Statistics Canada and some of the PIT assessments provided by various providers. So that was the answer to the first part. However, recognizing that homelessness exists in other areas of Canada, we established a separate project stream. And again, this is and I may have not been clear about this previously, so my apologies for that. So, but the second stream of $500 million is based on an application program, and anyone in Canada is invited to apply, and we will assess the projects based on need.
Thank you, Mr. Viss, and thank you, Ms. Bowers. Next, we have Mr. Turnbull, please, for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all the panelists for being here today. I'm really glad we're embarking on this study. It's important work, and I appreciate you as key resources for doing this work. I want to give most of my time to my colleague, Mr. McLeod, but I had just a couple of questions. Similar to Mr. Viss, I'm seeking a bit of some documentation and just wanted to get those questions out. Ms. Marin Como, I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. Would you be able to maybe table a list of programs and the amounts of funding associated with those programs, really anything to do with urban, rural, and northern Indigenous housing needs? Could you table a document with a list of those funding pockets and programs?
I think this is a question perhaps for my other federal colleagues. Crown Indigenous Relations, we're really doing Inuit and Métis Nation, so maybe other colleagues would like to pipe in as well.
Would you be able to table any documents in relation to Inuit and Métis nations?
Absolutely.
Okay, great, thank you. And then just to move over to Mr. Westmacott, if I may ask a similar question to you, if you wouldn't mind tabling a list of funding and specific programs. I understand based on my limited understanding that currently, I think there's urban programming for Indigenous peoples, there's the Indigenous Community Support Fund, and then I'm also interested in learning a bit more about Indigenous Homes Innovation Initiative that you spoke to in your opening remarks. Would you be able to table some more information on the funding and specific programs associated with each of those streams?
Absolutely. For those programs related to housing, we'd be more than happy to provide those.
Much appreciated.
Those lists, and yep.
Much appreciated. I'll give the rest of my time to Mr. McLeod. Thank you.
Go ahead, Mr. McLeod. Welcome to the committee. You have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to Mr. Turnbull for sharing some time with me. I really wanted to take a few minutes to make a couple comments and ask a few questions. This issue is very near and dear to my heart. I'm one of the few MPs, if not the only MP, that lives in an Indigenous community. And I live in a community called Fort Providence in the Northwest Territories. And I'm so glad that this committee is doing this study. It's something that's long overdue. We really need to have a committee take the time to understand what's going on in Indigenous communities across the country, and specifically in the North. In the North, we have the highest rates of suicide. We have the highest rate of murder. You know, we have the highest rates of sexual abuse, TB. We have it all here. We heard tonight that the national core need is on average around 18%. Well, in the Northwest Territories, it's at 42%. And that's up 20% from the 2016 federal census. So for us, things are not going in the right direction. We have put a lot of money into the North, but a lot of it is not going towards housing. We have many challenges. The government has made a lot of investment, historic amounts of investment for Indigenous people across the countries, but it's been focused on national Indigenous organization. I think you really need to take a look at it. This committee has to take a good look at where it's going. For us in the North, we don't belong to the national Indigenous organizations. So $1.5 billion for national organizations for housing, it doesn't come to us. And that's very concerning. The Reaching Home program is only for Yellowknife. So it's causing other problems because the communities, are you asking me to pause?
No, I'm just letting you know you have 1 minute.
Oh, okay. So many things are not working for us. And I wanted to just ask your team, the presenters here for the presentation. We heard lots about investment in North, investment in Indigenous people. I don't agree that that's really happening the way it is. We have, for example, the shelter initiative that's sitting there, two units for 3 territories. It's not going to work. No applications for the carve-out for co-investment. So the question is, how do you propose we tackle the housing crisis in the North when we're actually losing ground with what we've been doing? Is there something new that you can point to that is changing the tide that we're in?
Who do you want to address that question to, Mr. McLeod?
I wanted to address it to CMHC and to Indigenous Services.
Okay, Ms. Bowers, go ahead. The short answer, if you could, please.
Yes, and I'd like to defer this answer to my colleague, Lindsay Neely, who actually leads a team of housing specialists who serve Indigenous communities in the North.
Brief answer, Ms. Neely, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for the question. And what we can say about funding for the North is that there are new bilateral agreements in place with each territory where, as Romy indicated, there's $447 million over 10 years going to each territory to support the local needs. And we're also working to prioritize Northern housing needs through our programs of general application, like the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, and have provided $95 million to date to support projects across the territory. So certainly more to do, but encouraged to see the progress that's been made so far.
I don't know if I agree with that. I think.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod. I understand you're going to get another chance here in about 10 minutes.
I hope so.
Yeah. Okay. Suite, c'est le tour de Madame.
It is now over to Ms. Chabot for 2.5 minutes. Thank you. I'd like to ask my question about the Reaching Home program on homelessness. Ms. Golding, you specified that there were amounts set aside specifically for homelessness among the Indigenous population, and I'll take time to reread your presentation later, but it seems that the amounts even went up. So I'm excluding the particular situation with COVID-19, but I have two questions. Can you tell us how many projects or organizations that are working to fight homelessness amongst the Aboriginal population? So you were talking about being focused on the results. Did you set targets? How do you establish the criteria? Who decides about which projects get the amounts of money? Not you personally, of course, but in terms of these funds allocated to which projects, are you starting at the base to finance them? Or do you decide once they're launched? I mean, it's difficult to see what the results are. And given that these are programs that run over a long period of time, well, often we could see that the applications are going up and the problems are increasing. So how can we be successful with the criteria that you've established?
Very much for the question. I'm going to defer this question to my colleague, Mr. Chris Johnson, who is the Director General responsible for the Homelessness Policy Directorate at ESDC.
So thank you for the question. It is important, as Janet mentioned in her opening remarks, our program is community-based. So what that means in practice is while we provide the funding to communities, there are local governance committees put in place across the country, and those, we call them community advisory boards. Those advisory boards decide which projects get funded. So while we fund dozens of communities, there are thousands of individual projects that get funded by the program. Those decisions aren't made by the federal government, they're made by people in the communities all across Canada. You're absolutely right, the problems continue to be present. You know, as with many other programs, the communities make the best prioritization decisions themselves about where to invest the resources.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Merci, Madame Chabot. Next, Ms. Gazan, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes.
Yes, thank you very much. And my question is for Madame Morin-Como. In regards to the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls, and certainly a report that came out from the Native Women's Association of Canada, which indicated that First Nations women living off reserve experienced, in quotes, gendered and racialized discrimination by potential property owners, which affects their ability to find not just adequate but safe housing. Call for Justice 4.7 of the National Inquiry into Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women and Girls, and 2S calls on the government to support the establishment of long-term sustainable funding of Indigenous-led low-barrier shelters, safe spaces, transition homes, second stage housing, and services for Indigenous women, girls, 2S LGBTQIA people. My question is, how many low-barrier 24/7 safe spaces have been created since the National Inquiry report was released a year ago?
Thank you very much for the question. I don't have the answer to that question. Perhaps some of my other colleagues from the federal departments would have some of those answers. And if not, I'll circle back and get those answers and provide them to the committee.
Yeah, I asked that because we know since the beginning of COVID, I've heard the government talk about the reason they haven't been able to follow up on the action is because of COVID, but we know there's been an increase of 400% of violence against women in some areas, mainly targeting Indigenous women. So I'm wondering if that is a focus going forward. I know you don't have a number, but is that a specific focus, as we know that in many cases it is a life and death matter?
Perhaps I'll answer for the responsibility of Inuit and Métis Nation, and the partners that we're working with to develop the strategies certainly have that as a focus. So obviously this is something that is very prevalent, as you've just mentioned, and it's very important for Indigenous communities. And so when we developed housing strategies with Inuit and with the Métis Nation, there was certainly a very large kind of focus on gender-based violence and how housing can help to alleviate some of the gender-based violence, as well as the shelters and homelessness. So those strategies, there is a very strong focus in those strategies on what you've just mentioned.
Thank you, Ms. Gazan. Next,
you.
we're going to go to Mr. Kent, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks to all of our witnesses tonight. Starting off, what's the current status of CMHC's on-reserve rental housing program? And are rents reduced or scaled back when they involve buildings that require major repair or renovation?
Mr. Chair, if I may answer that question on behalf of CMHC. So our Section 95 is the on-reserve rental program that we continue to offer and have offered for a number of decades to support on-reserve housing needs. And there's no clawbacks or restrictions to the funding in terms of repairs. We also offer a suite of on-reserve repair programs that support a range of repair needs, from emergency repairs to adaptations for persons with disabilities or seniors. So it's a suite of programs that we continue to offer to address the on-reserve housing needs.
So rental accommodations are repaired by CMHC at no cost to the tenants, and with how much delay in some cases?
So the form of the funding provided for on-reserve repairs through existing programs or through a forgivable loan, repayable by the proponent. In most cases, that is the band or our council that we've entered into agreement with.
Okay. Still with on-reserve households, what are the challenges facing those households to meet eligibility requirements for repair and renovation costs in whatever the successor programs are to the old residential rehabilitation assistance program? Again, it's an old program, but I'm sure that it must have a successor of some sort.
So at CMHC, we continue to offer the residential rehabilitation program on reserve. As I mentioned, it's a suite of programs that support a variety of repair needs on reserve. There's an ongoing annual budget of over $8 million.
And again, band councils determine priorities?
That's correct.
Okay. I wonder whether any of the programs that we've discussed here tonight have targeted shrinkage costs for administration. Is there a common target of what administration costs should be in the delivery of programs, funding, and facilities to the homeless or those in need?
So, Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if that's a question directed to ESDC, responsible for the homelessness programming.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm going to defer to Chris Johnson.
Sure. So generally, we allow our community partners to reserve up to 15% of the funding for administration. The actual amounts vary by community.
Great, thanks. How much time, Mr. Chair?
About a minute and a half.
Oh, good. Well, thanks. Coming back again to the rapid housing initiative and the major cities stream, the City of Toronto, I see, has been allocated just over $200 million, $203 million in sum. And I understand it would be for the city to determine whether or how Indigenous homelessness would be addressed or folded into any of the programs that they may have with regards to shelters or new acquired housing. Is that correct?
That's correct. However, we do ask for an investment plan to be provided with each application, and we are looking for at least 15% of the projects to be targeted towards Indigenous populations within the cities.
And very briefly, do you have any numbers available for the meeting tonight in terms of your estimate of Indigenous homelessness in the City of Toronto?
I don't have that with me right now, but very happy to provide that after the meeting. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. And next, we're going to go back to Mr. McLeod for 5 minutes.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I did have a few more comments and questions to make. First of all, in the North, we don't have reserves, but we have Indigenous communities. The community I live in is 95% Indigenous, but it's not a reserve. And we have a lot of band councils. I think almost every community has a band council, and we have 33 communities. If there's First Nations in the communities, there's the band council. And there's a number of programs that have come forward that we're struggling to access as Indigenous governments are trying to put in applications. First of all, any of the programs that involve a cost sharing, there's limits to what they can do if they don't have the resources. So the co-investment fund, we've seen no applications approved under the carve-out for the Northwest Territories. And the shelter initiative also needs ongoing operating funds that would come from, in other parts of the country, would come from Indigenous Services Canada. And there is a program that is, I think it's called Ministerial Loan Guarantees. So I want to ask the representative from Indigenous Services. This program was set up in 1966, and it was designed to help Indigenous communities off reserve to access programs to do initiatives in the area of housing, but we haven't been successful. We have not been able to get one project approved. Could you maybe tell me why that might be? Is there something in it that doesn't allow the Northwest Territories Indigenous governments to be able to access that fund?
I thank you very much for the question. The ministerial loan guarantees was created predominantly because First Nations needed the ability to access financing in the markets, and the fact that they were on reserve, there was elements within the Indian Act that prohibited the use of the lands for collateral. So that is why most of the ministerial loan guarantees is gone and been directed towards First Nations on reserve. In terms of the actual specific questions about the access of ministerial loan guarantees off of reserve, where there is on Crown lands, that's a question I'll have to get back to you on.
Okay, well, in this case, it's probably disputed lands then, because it's most of these lands here are disputed and under land claim negotiations. I have another question regarding the funding that's been going to national Indigenous organizations. There's been $1.5 billion, which is very well received by those organizations. But there is a self-governing Indigenous governments, SGIGs, of which we have 2 nations here in the Northwest Territories that belongs to. And they've done a lot of work to develop pride, develop a strong independent nation. But it seems like they've been left out of the funding announcements. Is there a reason why we wouldn't recognize self-governing nations who have signed agreements with Canada and agreed to co-manage and coexist? Why we wouldn't recognize them as being able and willing partners to deliver programs while we recognize other ones?
Thank you very much for the question. Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Self-governing and modern treaty nations have the ability to access funding through the ISK housing programming. It is done through a application-based process, like all other First Nations, recognizing the unique characteristics of self-governing modern treaties, but they can access the housing funds that are provided by Indigenous Services Canada.
Can you tell me of any? Would you be able to provide me, maybe not right now, but later on, a list of those that have in the Northwest Territories? I'm not aware of any. So, and there also seems to be a problem with the 2 reserves we have in Northwest Territories, where Indigenous Affairs says they are responsibility of the government of Northwest Territories. the government of Northwest Territories says they're a federal reserve, they're responsibility of the federal government. How do you guys see that?
Thank you very much for the question. Just recently, there was funding provided to Salt River.
Salt River.
To Salt River to support the development in their community that would allow for future development for housing, et cetera. So it's allowing for the necessary infrastructure that would support housing going on to that community. That was money that was provided this summer.
Thank you, Mr. McLeod and Mr. Westmacott. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Viss, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you. And if my questions are repeated, it's because I had a technical issue and had to log off. Going back to my questions with CMHC, I'd like to just follow up on what you're discussing on the Rapid Housing Initiative. So for the 500 million envelope that's remaining, are the guarantees that the money is going to be used appropriately? Is there guarantees that the money is going to be used appropriately? Is there reporting mechanisms embedded into the agreements that have been established for this fund?
The short answer is yes. We expect there is a reporting mechanism that's being established, and we expect reporting to continue for the 20 years that we expect affordability to be maintained in these housing units that are created.
Would those tools for transparency and accountability be different than, say, funds under the National Co-Investment Fund?
We take seriously our responsibility to provide governance and due diligence, and the different types of due diligence and governance. It depends on the nature of the program. However, it's always our intent to make sure that the funds are being used for their intended purpose.
Okay, so I learned from a number of housing providers in meetings that under the National Co-Investment Fund, it's taking an exorbitant amount of time to receive those funds. Evan Siddall did tell this committee that they have improved on the dispensement of government monies or CMHC funds to housing applicants, but we haven't received that data yet. So I'm just wondering why the applications for the co-investment fund take over a year, yet the CMHC was able to develop a program with what I'm assuming from what you just told me has similar reporting mechanisms that can be delivered in under a month. Why the discrepancy?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Vies, and we will follow up on the information that you're still waiting for with respect to changes in our processes regarding the dispensement of funds under the National Housing Co-Investment Fund. And just on that, we have worked very hard over the last year to reduce the processing times by 50%, and the data that we'll provide will provide some indication of that. With respect to the RHI, it is a different program. It's 100% contribution versus being a loan. So given the nature of the different types of funding, our processes are very different, and our governance is different as well.
Thank you. I have a prepared question here for ESDC. Many Indigenous advocates and housing providers continue to question, without receiving an answer, why the federal government insists on implementing policies that balkanize on-reserve and off-reserve Indigenous peoples. The Reaching Home program illustrates this starkly. The Indigenous homelessness stream provides support for off-reserve Indigenous people, while the new distinctions-based and modern treaty holder funding stream denies this support. The Aboriginal Housing Management Association, who I believe we'll be able to hear from in a future meeting, provided the following feedback on the National Housing Strategy in 2016, and I quote, "Indigenous people live between two solitudes, often on reserve and off reserve, often moving back and forth between, yet federal and provincial governments and housing services are delivered completely distinctly and usually the rollout of new programs that are predefined. This piecemeal approach neglects to deliver support to the whole person. National Housing Strategy opportunity to replace jurisdictional and bureaucratic barriers to Indigenous people with an AHMA-based model that puts responsibility in the hands of regional providers and supports individuals through delivery of meaningful solutions that address housing issues. That's from someone in BC here. So my question is this: why didn't the government listen to and implement the solutions put forward by Indigenous experts working in the housing sector when that program was developed, and why hasn't it been improved?
So thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. In terms of the Indigenous homelessness funding under Reaching Home, I think what the program strives to do is strike a balance between maintaining the very important services that we have right now in urban communities provided by the Indigenous homelessness stream, as well as to work with our national Indigenous organizations to ensure that new funding meets the needs of the Métis, Inuit, and First Nations peoples in Canada. I think I would say that as we move through that co-development process with our national Indigenous organizations, that funding is largely still unallocated, and it will hopefully support and the needs of all Indigenous peoples across Canada as that allocation becomes clear.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Viss, and thank you, Ms. Goulding. Next, we're going to go to Mr. Vaughn, please, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I just a few very quick questions just to sort of clear up some loose ends. In terms of provincial transfers, the housing accords we've now signed with all provinces and territories, Indigenous housing dollars are contained inside those transfers. Do we track how much is spent and whether or not it's spent as intended? I guess that question would be to Madam Goulding.
So in terms of Reaching Home, we don't do transfers to PTs?
No, the housing accords with the provinces and territories. When we do block transfers to the provinces, there are legacy programs that are Indigenous led and designed and delivered. Do we track whether or not the provinces actually deliver the intended dollars to those providers, or is it just general transfer?
So in terms of housing programs, I'm going to have to defer to my colleagues at CMHC.
Sorry, apologies.
Mr. Chair, it's Lindsay Neely here from CMHC. If I could respond to that question. We do have, through the new bilateral agreements with each province and territory, some funding directed directly towards Indigenous housing, and reporting is done publicly through action plans submitted by each jurisdiction.
Okay. And in terms of, in particular, the housing subsidies for the operating agreements, there's been some lapsed agreements. Where have they gone, and why are they lapsing if we've transferred dollars to provinces, in particular in Ontario?
I'm afraid we'd have to follow up with a written response on that one.
Okay. In terms of Madam Morin-Como, would multi-year funding, block funding to an Indigenous-led urban, rural, northern housing program, would that deal with some of the geography and seasonal construction issues? If they had multiple years to assemble resources and multiple years to use them, would that be better than an annual turnover and an annual project-by-project approach?
So thank you very much for the question. I'd just like to clarify that it is not project by project. It is a block of funding that is offered to directly to Inuit or to Métis Nation. And those funding arrangements are very flexible. So they actually can roll over the funding from 1 year to the other. So what it would do, and I think what you're pointing to is we've provided the flexibility for those Indigenous partners to actually roll over funds to accommodate some of the challenges, as you've just mentioned, geography and some of those construction challenges, particularly in the north. So we've built that into the funding arrangements with Indigenous partners. So it kind of mitigates some of those challenges that you've just mentioned.
And to back to CMHC, in terms of all of the programs, the National Housing Strategy, there is no program that prevents an urban, rural, or northern application. Is that true?
That's correct.
And the programs, even the Rapid Housing Initiative, are designed to overlap with those programs. So if there are gaps, they can work in concert if needed.
That is correct.
Okay. And in terms of Reaching Home, we are now starting to see in some of the larger urban centers, Vancouver, Winnipeg being two, where Indigenous leadership is actually taking over the designated community stream. So even though it's not part of the Indigenous stream, Indigenous leadership is in fact designing programs for the whole community, not just for themselves. maybe better from Madam Goulding.
Yeah, sorry, and thank you for that question. Yes, that is correct.
We're encouraging and supporting that process, and if an urban program were to emerge, blending those programs would also be a possibility if the government decided so.
So in terms of reaching home, we always encourage our designated community entities and our Indigenous community entities to work together, and we certainly recognize that the importance of ensuring that those both of those dedicated funding streams serve the needs of the homeless individuals in their communities, which, as we know, there is an overrepresentation of Indigenous persons. So absolutely, we encourage that kind of collaboration.
And in Quebec, on Reaching Home, the money is transferred through the provincial government. It's the only place in the country where that happens. Our ability to fine tune that into Indigenous-led programs must be agreed to by the Quebec government before the federal government can spend directly into those communities with direct housing programs, including in the general Reaching Home and as well as the general national housing strategy. That's one of the challenges we face in Quebec.
So I can only speak to Reaching Home, and I'll defer to my colleagues on housing in CMHC. But in Quebec, the Indigenous housing or the Indigenous homelessness stream is managed directly by Service Canada. So we do that on a project by project basis. But the designated community stream and the rural and remote funding streams are managed co-managed with the government of Quebec, and we set priorities jointly with them for that funding.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn, and thank you, Ms. Goulding. We have about 3 minutes left, so we'll go with just a couple of questions from the Bloc Québécois from the NDP to finish up. Madame Chabot pour...
Ms. Chabot, you have 2 minutes. Bloc Québécois, that's me. Yes, that's you. All right. I have a question regarding Indigenous peoples in urban centers. The interpreter says that the connection is lost with Ms. Chabot. She cannot hear Ms. Chabot.
Je crois que Madame Chabot...
Ms. Chabot, your screen is frozen. Is it the case for everyone? No one can hear Ms. Chabot? All right.
You can hear me, but we're going to go to Ms. Gazan, and if you can get your technical problems resolved, we'll come back to you with a question before we wrap up. Ms. Gazan, for 2 minutes, please.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to go back to the distinction-based Indigenous housing strategy and the numbers. Again, really inadequate, the funding. It sounds like big numbers, but it's grossly inadequate. 634 reserves, 600 million over 3 years, little over 300,000 per community, not even a house in some communities. Inuit, for the funding that's targeted for Inuit communities, 400 million, 53 communities, 500,000 per community over a period of 10 years. Again, we know that there's 15 people living in houses, lives are on the line. And again, going back to Métis, 10 years, it amounts to approximately $100 per registered Métis person over 10 years. I'm wondering why decisions keep being made knowingly underfunding housing when we know the situation is dire now, certainly with COVID, and that it's going to cost lives, particularly in remote and rural communities.
Thank you very much for the question. So I would probably answer to say that more needs to be done, as I indicated in my opening remarks. It's a start of an investment, 2016, 2018 for Inuit and 2018 for Métis Nation. And I would like to also clarify some of the statistics in writing that you're using in terms of the communities and the dollar figures. So, but I can do that with the committee in writing.
Well, certainly for Inuit, 39% of Inuit Nunavut live in overcrowded homes. 33% are in need of major repairs. 33 are in core housing need. And we know that this contributes to poor health and including mental health and puts people at risk during the pandemic. Would you agree? Yes or no?
The housing crisis has a lot of impacts. You've mentioned health. You've mentioned, and previous speakers have mentioned education. And obviously that's why the government is looking at strategies to address the housing crisis for all communities.
Would you say that the failure...
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Gazan.
you.
We're
Thank
out
you.
of time. Est-ce que Madame Chabot
Is Ms. Chabot still with us? No. Okay.
So we have some committee business to attend to, and we have about 14 minutes left in our allocated time. So I'm going to take this opportunity to offer a sincere thank you to the witnesses. This is obviously a vast study that impacts many departments. We appreciate the patient and professional way that you've answered the questions today. And I think in the COVID era, you knew it all along, but I think Canadians generally and parliamentarians especially have developed a renewed appreciation for what you do. So thank you for being with us today, and thank you for your service to your country. I wouldn't be surprised that we may be back to you once we get some of the answers that you've committed to provide us in writing. So thank you very much for all the witnesses. You're free to go, but you're welcome to stay. And we're going to move now to committee business. Colleagues, we're moving now to committee business, although we are not in camera, we're still in public, so that you know. And there are a couple of matters that we want to deal with. First, to give you just Yoda, I think Yoda wants the floor there. Anyway, I'll see if I can talk over her. So first of all, in terms of the schedule going forward, you will have received a notice of meeting for our next meeting with a short witness list. That's because there are still witnesses to be confirmed, but they are coming from the lists that have been submitted by the parties in furtherance of the study that we started with today. Next week we will have Ministers Tassi and Schultz on supplementary estimates. So that's the plan for the next 3 meetings. The one thing in particular that I needed that we need the committee's guidance on today is that we have received a letter from the Parliamentary Budget Officer on the 2nd of November outlining a proposed scope for the PBO's assistance with the study. And so what I guess what I require is some feedback from the committee and ideally a formal motion from the committee as to what our response to the Parliamentary Budget Officer should be. Are we happy with the scope that has been provided, or do you wish to make a response or to delegate me to do that? So that's the question that and the main reason for setting aside some time for committee business. So if you could use the raise hand function, and any comments with respect to the scope of the involvement of the Parliamentary Budget Officer, and ideally a motion for direction, please. Mr. Kent.
Yes, thanks, Chair. And I'm just trying to recall the PBO's point with regards to scope. Was he saying he is limited in his ability, but I don't think he delineated exactly.
Sure, Mr. Kent, I can summarize. I have the letter before me. So he indicates that his office would be happy to provide the committee with an analysis of Indigenous housing needs and homelessness in urban, rural, and northern areas. This would include the number of households in housing need or that are homeless and the demographic, economic, and geographic characteristics of those households. His second item was current federal spending to address Indigenous housing needs and homelessness. This would include spending dedicated under Indigenous housing programs and spending to support Indigenous housing under programs not specifically targeted to Indigenous peoples. And the third element of the analysis that he's offering is a unit cost of addressing Indigenous housing needs and homelessness through various policy options, including the cost of providing rent subsidies or social housing, and a discussion of the key factors. So those are the areas that he specifically referenced, and basically had left the door open to analysis or other opportunities.
Conservatives would accept a gracious offer, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kent. Mr. Vaughan, please.
Thank you. And in follow-up to my question to some of the officials, there are block transfers made to the provinces that include accommodation for things like housing operation subsidies and some of the legacy programs which were downloaded in the early 90s. If we could also have the PBO report back to us on what transfers are made by the federal government to provinces and which provinces have reported and what that reporting looks like, so we get the full scope of federal expenditure, and if there are provincial supports that are above and beyond the federal ones, what they look like, to round out, so we understand exactly what the full scope of federal and provincial spending is on this file, so we don't duplicate. I think that would be very helpful. And I also think that within the National Housing Strategy, the last time the PBO looked at the National Housing Strategy, they excluded any program that was cost shared, even though it was federal money, largely that was funding it. So to look at the National Housing Strategy, because the programs have been opened up to all urban, rural, and northern housing programs, to get a full understanding from the full National Housing Strategy, not just the 100% federal dollars, what allotment of the programs have gone to urban, rural, and northern, so we can get an understanding of how they're currently accessing the program, even if it's not necessarily identified upfront as Indigenous. So the 2 points to be clear, one would be to ask for the a full assessment, or as close to a full assessment as we can, of provincial transfers and provincial expenditures on Indigenous urban, rural, and northern housing. And then secondarily, a full assessment of the National Housing Strategy, whether it's 100% or cost shared programs, to understand the draw that's being made on those programs by Indigenous urban, rural, and northern housing programs.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughan. Mr. Viss?
Well, actually, to Mr. Vaughan's point, I don't think that's unreasonable to understand the scope of provincial transfers and how that impacts areas of joint responsibility. That's a reasonable amendment or addition to the scope of work. I would point out in my first round of questioning today, I was seeking to understand administrative costs by departments in administering housing programs. I would like that to be included in the scope of work as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Viss. Are there any further submissions? Is there any? Okay, so I think what I'm hearing is that I should write back to the PBO to say we wish to add to the scope of your work the points raised by Mr. Vaughan and Mr. Viss regarding expenditures made by the provinces and administrative costs associated with the various programs. Is that the will of the committee?
And the full NHS programs, whether they're 100% or cost shared, to understand what is currently inside the National Housing Strategy attributed to the urban, rural, and northern streams.
Yep, understood. Okay, so I think we have consensus, Mr. Clerk. Are we clear enough to be able to draft a letter that captures this discussion, or do we require a formal motion?
It would be better if we had a formal motion, but we can work without one. Sorry, the proceduralist.
Okay, any wordsmithing volunteers? I can't propose the motion, but I can tell you my understanding and if somebody wants to adopt it. I guess I'm looking for a motion to direct the chair to respond to the parliamentary budget officer to expand the scope of his analysis as contained in his November 2nd letter by adding an analysis of the transfers from the province and provincial supports for urban, rural, and Indigenous housing to better understand the full scope of the federal provincial contributions. Also, the National Housing Strategy allotment to urban, rural, and Indigenous housing, that an analysis of those sums be included, and further that any and all administrative costs associated with the various housing programs form part of the analysis. If I could have a motion to that effect, I think that does it, unless you tell me that it doesn't.
Mr. Chairman, could I just ask a quick question?
Absolutely.
You referred to urban, rural, and Indigenous. Is the study
Sorry.
northern, urban, and rural?
I misspoke if that's what I said, Mr. McLeod. It's the study is urban, rural, and northern Indigenous housing. That's what I should have said. Thank you. Mr. Viss, did you have a comment?
I'll move it.
That was Mr. Vaughn. Okay, motion moved by Mr. Vaughn. Is there any discussion? Please don't ask me to repeat it. Seeing none, do we have consensus to adopt the motion? Do we require a standing vote? I believe I see consensus in the room. The motion is adopted. Is there any further business to come before the meeting? Seeing none, thank you very much, colleagues. We'll go ahead with that letter to the PBO and we'll see you in a couple of days. We're adjourned.